Yo guys, what's up and welcome back to r/idontworkherelady, where Today we are actually having a different subreddit, which is Ask Reddit, and the stories are gonna be about neighbors from hell. By the way, if you have your own crazy neighbors, then feel free to post your anecdotes/stories in the comments. We would love to hear them. But now let's dive right in. This is not even everything that went down with that neighbor, just some not so brief highlights. My mom had this neighbor who pretended to be weak from cancer/chemo, so her landlord could not get mad at her for when trash bins were full and lawn was filthy. She even went as far as shaving her head and faking a limp, cane and everything. My mom baked her some cookies and offered to take care of her bins and lawns, and the neighbor spills about her scam. My mom, now enlightened about my neighbors, the fault in our star's bullcrap, and tired of the trash blowing in our yard, called the landlord. Neighbor was not happy and would blast music at ungodly hours of the night/wee morning to get back at my mom. Mom would get frustrated because she worked late and left early, filed noise complaint to police. Police arrive, neighbor claims my mom, who is an old little Asian lady, punched her in the chest. The neighbor then wanted her arrested, and my mom showed the cops our security cam footage, which is no mom punching, instead finds crazy neighbor kicking her 9-year-old daughter out in the middle of the night. 9-year-old is banging on her door, my mom comes out to check on noise, tries to bring hysterical girl inside, it's like 2 AM, and the neighbor comes out and sprays her with the hose. Neighbor taken away, daughter sent to live with dad. On to the next story. They tried to kill my dog because it was a death dog and she was a white lab and very sweet. We had a large fence in the backyard. My dog was not terribly loud, she was not aggressive at all. She was just the size of a lab and my neighbors, specifically the wife, thought that made her evil. They called the cops more than once, saying my dog was terrorizing the neighborhood. The cops came, met the dog, and we explained that she was always in her yard. They left, saying, just make sure she stays in the yard. Well, neighbor called 2 more times to complain, and eventually they went and spoke with her about her ludicrous complaints. Here is when she started taking matters into her own hands. We noticed our dog was getting sick a lot, like really sick. We took her to the vet, and the vet said we needed to stop feeding her human food that could be bad for dogs. We had no clue what she was talking about. We went back home and decided to keep a closer eye on her. Turns out our neighbor had been dumping all manner of vile things over our fence, food scraps, mop water and God knows what else. We went and spoke with her about this and she denied it. Finally, we caught her on video and made sure she saw us recording her. Later that night, the husband comes over and apologizes for his wife and begs us not to call the cops. He promises he will ensure our dog is left alone. We agreed, but said if anything happened to our dog again, we would press charges. Thankfully, she stopped coming after our dog. She moved on to our landscaping. She climbed over the fence more than once to trim, hack and destroy our hedges and a few saplings. She even went and pulled all the flowers out of our flower bed that we had just planted. We went and spoke with her husband as he was the more sane of the two. Same conversation as with our dog. There were more random things that we could never prove. Eventually, she fell very ill and passed. Her husband was like a different person. Invited us over for barbecues and all. Eventually, even got himself a little dog. Damn, did you guys ever have any issues with neighbors in regards to your pets? If you have something interesting to share, feel free to post it in the comments. On to the next story. My neighbors in the shitty apartment I moved to after I moved out of my parents' place were hoarders to the extreme, as well as alcoholics. We started getting roaches in our apartment about 2 months after they moved in. Then came mice, then came rats. About once a month we would call 911 on them because we would find one of them passed out in the parking lot or on the doorstep or on the stairs. They came over and asked if it was us who kept calling 911. Then they cussed us out because they did not have insurance and had to take out numerous payday loans to cover the ambulance costs. We broke our lease and moved out after someone took a shit on our welcome mat. Definitely a nice welcoming present from a good neighbor. I live on a farm and we had one guy who was a real prick. He was known to have definitely stolen sheep from us. In some cases he had shorn the wool off them, sold it and returned the sheep, and sometimes eating the sheep, we suspect. He demanded that we front the bill to fix the fence despite it being between our two properties and refusing to split the cost. He also had someone else bull jump into his property, used it to service his cattle for 2 years, and when the owner tracked it down, the guy demanded to be paid the adjustment costs or he would not return it. He had a house on the property that he rented to his farmhand, and the farmhand found him in there one day going through his things and telling him he was not allowed to leave the property under any circumstances while under his employment. The guy quit straight after that and wanted to work for us. Update: got a bonus shitty neighbor as well. We had another old neighbor who regularly would try and play chicken with us in his car and once pointed a shotgun at my dad after my dad questioned why he sent his friends to hunt on our property. Update 2, for those wondering, I'm Australian. My dad did not call the cops and the games of chicken soon ended when he decided his shitty Volvo was a match for a 5-ton truck. My dad did not budge and the crazy old guy ran himself off the road, no damage done to either of them. Next one. My neighbor has 3 dogs which they let outside twice a day to poop. The dogs are friendly and not very loud. Except they always shit on our lawn, and my husband and I have actually seen our neighbors encourage their dogs to use our lawn. They physically lead the dogs to our lawn or discourage them from going on their lawn, etc. I finally had enough, so I got my garden towel and flicked all their dog shit onto their lawn. Today, my husband went outside to mow the lawn and caught the neighbor encouraging their dogs to go onto our lawn. The neighbor acted like nothing was wrong, but quickly called the dogs back. Edit: we did talk to the neighbors before about the poop, but they are not interested. It's been roughly a year since we moved here and I cannot wait to move out already. We want to build a fence, but we are in the middle of remodeling our bathroom. The house was built in the 70s and hasn't been maintained very well, so we cannot really afford a fence right now. To all those saying that my husband should poop on their porch / doormat / lawn to get revenge, he's a shy pooper and he cannot even poop in front of me, let alone in the open with neighbors watching. But thanks for the input. My first apartment living away from home was in a small complex filled with retirees. My neighbor across the hallway was a man, my ex, and I nicknamed Mr. Fire. He would glare at me all the time and complain whenever I was sitting outside. He hated my cat and always assumed I was a smoker.
Young people and their cigarettes, you better not smoke around here. The lady down the hall from you is on oxygen and she can smell it.
How he got his nickname: once I was walking to the bus stop before class and X and I saw a garbage can smoldering in front of our building. It was not flaming, but there was a hole burned through it and the plastic around the hole was melting. It had been a dry spring, so we were worried it might start an actual fire. X ran inside to get the apartment manager, who lived 1 floor under me. When she came outside with the maintenance guy who removed the can, she yelled at the neighbor's window, "Hey you, what's the deal here?" Apparently, this old man with beginning stages of dementia was cooking a steak in his kitchen. When the meat lit on fire, he did not know what to do, so he threw the entire pan in the garbage. But then the can started melting, so he thought it would be a good idea to throw the whole thing out the window onto a garden full of wood chips. He was eventually taken away to a retirement home after flushing his diapers down the toilet, bursting a pipe and flooding the laundry room. And the next one. Guy next door was a hoarder, junk on front and back porch, door that won't open, and never cut his grass. After a couple years of city not enforcing lawn care, neighbors on either side started cutting front lawn for him. But we could not mow back for him because he always had 2 large dogs who only understood Polish. Grass was always 6 inches tall in the backyard, and that plus trash meant the mosquitoes along the fence were horrendous, rendering our otherwise pleasant shade garden unusable after any rain. At one point he was stealing our water, which drove up our water bill. We suspect he did not have electricity either. He hung out at the library all day most days. Near the end, he slept in his truck in his driveway sometimes, possibly to avoid going in his hoarding ruined house. Eventually, he died, he was very sick, and his house is in probate. Now someone mows every month or so. His son came and tried to clean out the house, but after dozens of truckloads to the dump, when the beer cans and fast food bags were still hip deep, I think he finally admitted defeat and quit coming out to clean every weekend. It will take a professional crew to clean it, I think. Thank goodness we are renters, not owners. This is a bad neighbor story that was fixed by a good neighbor. My grandma, who passed away recently, lived in not the best part of town. She worked at my dad's laundromat there, refused to leave, and loved working there for 30 plus years. 10 years ago, some new neighbors came in and decided to pick on my grandma, the entire family, young to old. They would steal cars, throw crap at her, steal money when she wasn't looking, etc. I had no idea what was going on, and my grandma was too prideful to tell anyone. However, one day another neighbor that has been washing his clothes there for 20 plus years saw this. I'm pretty sure he's a drug dealer, but I don't judge. I played baseball with his kids. He legit told my grandma to wait inside, picked the littlest one up, hung him on a fence post, and exchanged words with the father before picking him up by his neck. The entire street watched. They moved out the next day after he smashed all their car windows. Till this day, not a soul has bothered my grandma again. I did not hear this story until her funeral last week, and it's amazing how terrible and great people can be. On to the next one. We had one house on my old street growing up, which had just changed owners. Seemingly nice couple and their kids moved in, and they are okay at first. Kids were kinda annoying, but they were like 6 and 9, so the rest of us on the block ignored it, and we were all between the ages of 13 to 16. The kids began screaming profanities at us and throwing stuff. We just started avoiding them because they were nuts. So they told their mom that we were being mean. We then learned that she was effing crazy and would ride her bike up and down the street, telling parents what their children had done wrong to their boys, mostly lies, but some truth, and none of the parents would take her serious, and she was told to F off many times. Moreover, we had an empty lot on the street where we would dig tunnels and build paintball fields. Every single morning we would find everything destroyed on the field, and we find suspicious attempts at traps made and all kinds of shit. Boards with nails laid behind my neighbor's tires and shit. I'm certain the mom was sending her kids out on missions to get back at us and the parents. The unprovable damage went on for about a year. Peace returned when she moved, and then we all grew up. I live next door to a psychotic meth cook in the backwoods south that's a genius at evading cops. Ask me anything. He does exciting things like ride an ATV up and down the street, shooting randomly in the air, shoot up with his buddies 10 feet from my son's bedroom window, wreck into my house, build booby-trapped meth labs in the woods, and beat his girlfriend. His friends show up and pass out in my driveway, random drugs show up in my mailbox all the time, cannot leave my house because he will rob it, and God, he's so much fun. Damn, some people really have interesting neighbors. As I mentioned before, if you have any crazy neighbor stories, please share them in the comments. Does not have to be fully fledged stories, anecdotes are fine as well. And the last one. I live in an apartment, I pay my rent on time, I don't break a lot of shit, sometimes I laugh a little loud with my sister or friends, but overall I'm a good neighbor. This guy and his girlfriend move in, she gets pregnant, and they decide to get a dog. She decides that she doesn't want to walk or play with the dog, so she puts him out on the balcony all day. The dog barks all effing day. This went on for about 2 months. The city I live in has a noise ordinance, but the cops really don't enforce it much. Property manager said, "We've talked to him and the dog isn't out much during the day." I was at my wit's end. I finally contacted the property owner, told him I had been here for several years with no incident and that the neighbors had a dog they kept on the balcony, so the smell of dog shit and piss was horrible and I couldn't sit out on my balcony in peace. He got in contact with my property manager and told them to either evict them or move them away from me. Before they moved out, he got drunk and smacked her around. I called the cops on him, they took him in, but she refused to press charges. Not sure what happened to them after they got moved to another department. And guys, unfortunately, that's the last story/comment for today. I hope you enjoyed the content. I'm sorry it's a little bit different than usual. That's because I'm in a little bit of stress right now, since I have to produce several episodes in advance, since I'm going to visit the parents of my girlfriend again. And I don't think I can really record anything there, I can just edit videos. So please bear with me. Normal content will be coming back soon. I hope you have a fantastic day and I see you again tomorrow.